Awesome. All right. Well, everyone, today here we have Kelly Curry, and she'll be leading a workshop on grounding ourselves through this tumult. And Kelly is located in, or is the local peace economy organizer with Code Pink, and based in Oakland, California right now. So handing it off to you, Kelly.
Thank you so much. Good to see you here. Wow. Greetings, everyone. Welcome to our beautiful garden. I want to give a little shout out to the garden and the gardener and florist who's here, actually, my landlord, who is a Japanese floral designer, arranger, and grows a lot of her own things that she uses for her teaching. So really happy and feeling really blessed to have this space to live and to ground in during really crazy times in the world. Nature is becoming the essence of my peace, and looking out every day and seeing things, thank you, and seeing things growing and alive and flourishing, even though things are really nutty in the world and violent, is it's really good for our souls. I can say it's good for our souls. It is our souls. So I first want to give a shout out to we lost a dear brother, truth teller, this week, Paul Mooney, who really supported my ability to speak truth when I was very young to white supremacy. We didn't call it that back in those days, but was always very out there with speaking about it in his own way through his comedy, and paid a very dear price for it, I think, as we do in a society that really lifts up and holds up fame and wealth and stardom at any price. So I just want to lift him up today. And also what's going on with our neighbors, our Palestinian neighbors, and friends and sisters and brothers. I woke up with Palestine on my mind. Woke up with Palestine on my mind. The bombings have stopped over Palestine, but I have despair in my bones. I'm wondering how long we will wander here until we find our way home. The children are dying in Yemen too, same way they are in Flint, Michigan. Though the bombs have stopped for the moment, I know we are still wandering and do not know our way home. Do I have to settle being a witness as I dig graves for babies with my bare hands? They have closed all the roads for the supplies and have sworn to sever any helping hand. Is this all our time here and heaven on earth amounts to as activists and lovers of peace? I have prayed for lifetimes for hope and freedom, and this morning I remember that it starts inside of me. May I use every breath, every ounce of power in my soul, and pull it together and blow them in the wind for beautiful dreams as I hang on the whispers of birds that sing my heart, who know that peace on earth among two-leggeds is as elusive as a mist on the morning sea breeze. So can I invite everyone to take a deep breath? I'm going to give gratitude for Code Pink and for Local Peace Economy, which is, like I said about nature, Local Peace Economy, which is a technology that we engage to reconnect to one another, reconnect to our communities, build the courage just to say hello to a stranger on the street, even if they're behind a mask, and walk across the street like, yo, what's up, brother? How you doing? It reinvigorates that ability. So I want to tell the story of how I became engaged with Local Peace Economy. And as I'm telling that story, weave in the tips of how you can actually be doing this in your own community, and also highlight ways that it's already happening. I was in Berlin the day that the news broke about our government separating migrant families at the border, placing children in cages and jailing the parents. Back home in the US, I was working on a project that connected densely nourishing green smoothies to children in my community in Oakland, California, where lack of access to living foods is killing them. I'd often wondered what happened in our world. Why was it okay for children, entire communities, not to have access to food, living food? How had food deserts become normalized in one of the most materially rich countries in the world? All of this was happening in the midst of the Flint, Michigan water crisis. I'm not sure if you all are aware of the Flint, Michigan water crisis, where it was okay to change the lines and change the source of the water because some politicians were going to make more money. But that was happening too at this time. So all these things are like swirling around in my mind. This is another US catastrophe brought on by inhumanity and greed of the local politicians in that city. Now I was wondering why it was okay to lock kids in cages and separate them from their moms and dads. So I'm in Berlin and I'm walking, down the street. It's Unter den Linden, and I'm actually driving down the street with my friend, and I was like, why does the street look so familiar? And she said, oh, this is where Hitler used to march. This is where she's like, she's like redirected my attention. I looked up and I remember all the flags that they used to have, the Third Reich and that kind of thing, and the marching. And so ironic for me that day. And that was also the day that Anthony Bourdain passed away, oddly enough, another messenger of peace on our planet. So it's a heavy day. So I bumped into this monument, and the monument, it's marble slabs. I'm not sure if you all are familiar with this. It's the memorial to the murdered Jews of Europe. And as I thought about children being torn from their parents at our borders and placed in cages, something in my mind and my soul confronted the fact that humanity was playing out another terrific giant evil. And it was even worse because to me, it was a turning point with all the evils because our president was so out in the open about it. It wasn't that we had to hide it. It wasn't like something that you would find out, like the Tuskegee experiment or like Loretta, the cells of Henrietta Lacks. It's like something that was happening now. There's no lies being told. It was just going on. And that sense of like, I don't care who knows it. These kids are in cages. Who cares? They're the scum of the earth. It made me think like, we're turning our heaven into hell here. And here's the time. So when I returned to the States, I received a text from Lena Gonzalez, who was a senator. She'd been a local council person when I was in Long Beach, but she had wanted to become a senator and supported the work that we did at Living Love Foundation, which was a project we started for my mom after she passed away. And she was organizing buses to go to the border. So as soon as I got back, I went to the border to go see about this situation and lend my voice. There were other community activists, politicians, clergy. Reverend Barber from the Poor People's Campaign was there. I didn't know who he was. I'm embarrassed to say that at that time. I didn't know who he was at the time. So we got there, and there's high barbed wire fences and jails that were holding the mothers. And they began crying out to us once we had finished marching and rallying, and we all lined up. It was a very solemn moment. We lined up along the gates of the jail. And they started talking to us in their indigenous languages, and they started talking to us in English, and they started talking to us in Spanish. And there was a translator and a shaman, and he was at times just shh, because we were crying, and there was this gentle murmuring of just, probably our conscious. And they said a few things. They said, thank you for coming. We love you. We thank you as brothers and sisters for supporting us. It was so poignantly, it just felt, there was just all the soul in it. If I want to say un-American, because it was just so like, Americans like, yo, they're asking for what we need immediately. They wanted to let us know that they knew the risk that we were taking by being there. And the last thing that they said, which changed my life forever, was, can you tell us where our children are? Are they alive? Are they safe? And, it touched a very deep place in my heart, because every day of my life when my mother was living, she would say to me, you have no idea how fortunate you are to have your father and I here with you raising you. You have no idea how lucky you are to see how I set the table, how I pour a glass of water, how I move, because she did not have that experience. And so in that moment, I felt a connection with those words and with what the women were saying. It was kind of like an out-of-body thing. My mind and heart cannot process the impact of what was happening. The world that I was living in, the government, my society, the community I was a contributing member of had actually organized itself surrounding and allowing this hideous moment in the lives of vulnerable children and families who actually came to the US because they thought they would be safe here. So it was very tragic and like very macabre. And I just, when things happen and you just have to let it move through you because you can't process it. What my mother had gone through just to keep us from the jaws of this darkness, which I had later encountered in my work as an activist and frontline communities and the work that I do. Now I pictured these children in that darkness. and I sobbed, and I wasn't alone while I sobbed. Our crying was muted as possible as the healer and the shaman quieted us down. And in that quiet moment, I had an inner reckoning that we had crossed a Rubicon into the kind of darkness that didn't need to hide behind God's back, and knew it could engage this hideousness in full light of day, and that we were in huge trouble. I also knew in that moment of hearing their cries and pleas that the only way, this was all happening as I'm standing there quietly crying, thinking about my own everything. I said, the media isn't here. The only way that anyone is going to know if this is going on, like right now, if these women have said this thing, if Americans heard that, they would be, I think, out in the streets. If Americans heard those women, the way that whole moment unfolded, I said, I got to go back to wherever I'm going, Oakland, Long Beach, LA, and tell everyone I can. We have to say no to this. Without fear, we have to speak up. So after posting and talking, and this is the next moment, which is really important, because as I look back at it, I realized that I was being initiated into this moment of what has happened in our country, what has gone on, where these things are just happening and no one's saying anything. So after posting and talking and telling, and also why local peace economy is so important. So after posting and talking and telling everyone I knew and didn't know, I approached churches, teachers. I would go up to people in the street, I didn't care, and say, look, I was just down at the border, this thing is happening. But people seemed like, they were like, oh, whatever, you know, this is what do they do for us? You know, many, not all African Americans, but many African Americans, they've been doing that to us forever. And why do you care? And, you know, just focus on your own community. And somehow it wasn't enough for me. And also I had that moment of like, what the F is going on? Like, no, this is not okay. And one day I just went home and knew two things. I didn't have the resources. I didn't know the people. I didn't have the contacts. I needed to connect with people who agreed with me. I needed to hear some affirmation. And going back to Brother Paul Mooney, the comedian who just passed away, I think when I was a kid and I went out, I got on a plane and went to New York and interviewed him, I was searching for truth. I was searching for someone who could look me in my eye and explain some things to me that I did not understand. And when I went home that day and shut the door to my space and got on my knees and prayed and said, God, please help me, because this is not okay. And I need to be able to lend my energy. God answered very quickly because I found an ad from Code Pink, this weird, like, you know, project they were doing called Local Peace Economy. And I read through it and I was like, am I dreaming? Like, they need somebody to go out and talk to people, somebody who loves community, somebody who's been active in community. And within like a week, I swear, when you really like have that heartfelt soul connection to God, God's like, okay, cool, meet Jody Evans. And so it was kind of a funny story because I sent the email, I made an appointment with Kristen, and this person named Jody calls me, and I was like, Jody, where's Kristen? I'm like on the spectrum, I think, you guys, between us, but I was like, Jody, where's Kristen? And she said, Kristen is, I don't know, she's doing her work somewhere. I said, well, who are you? She said, I'm the co-founder of Code Pink. And I was like, oh, okay. So we started talking, and she told me about local peace economy, and she told me about war economy. And I didn't quite connect in the moment. And she said, we're spending trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars on, you know, weaponry, on bullets, tanks, you know, all of these things that are going out to fight instead of, and this was the piece that connected to my project, which is the Electric Smoothie Lab Apothecary. All of this, see, like all the smoothies that you're giving out, you wouldn't be giving those out if this money wasn't going, you know, to fight these wars and to kill children and people in other countries and take land and healthcare, roads, infrastructure. War economy was why the children in Deep East Oakland were starving and dying of diabetes. War economy was why Black and brown children in the communities where I was giving out smoothies were suffering through the treatable illnesses brought on by malnourishment and food deserts. Children being separated from their moms and dads at the border. She helped me understand that was just another layer of what was happening. I kind of right now in here make the connection between Donald Trump was helpful because Donald was so once again open about like just pulling back the veil on all of the hideousness that was going on. And I remember he made a statement about, I think it was about Iran, and he was saying, you know, about the like blocking, not allowing anyone to support them. And I'll never forget it. He said, I'll just choke him off. We're choking him off. I mean, he's so like, you know, I think thinking that everyone thinks like he does, he's like, we'll choke them off. They'll die soon. You know, and we'll have the land. And, you know, in this moment, I'm in this open moment of making the connections between what's going on in my own community. And I'm like, damn, that's what they're doing here. You know, I've met brothers in San Quentin prison who did things like so they could eat, so they could participate as teenagers, as kids, who know nothing about like the things we're talking about here. And when we relate to the food system, malnourishment, you know, systemic racism, all the systems that have been put in place. So if you look at that map, I'm sure you all are watching what's going on, looking at those maps of Palestine and looking at the maps of the ghettos and how they've been organized. So take that and think about Deep East Oakland. Take that and think about, you know, the west side of Chicago. Take that and think about, you know, the water in Flint, Michigan. You know, so for me, as someone who did not, you know, a lifelong activist, did not go to school and study these things. I don't even know if this happens in schools necessarily. But it was like, whoa, you know. So Jody explained that I was already engaged in local peace economies through growing my project, the Electric Smoothie Lab Apothecary, since it was organized around redistributing things that had already been sucked out by war economy. And so joining local Code Pink, I realized that my greatest asset was my ability to go into spaces and organize contacts, community, and pull together resources to for helping hands across borders. So this is a part that I want to say with organizing local peace in your own community. It's about talking to your neighbors. It's about having that, you know, just saying, hey, what's up? How are you? And then maybe organizing some sit downs, organizing some conversations. And the thing that's helped me, and this has helped me with my health and with everything, is like the small changes day by day of just, you know, maybe you meet once a month, maybe we meet once every couple of weeks, maybe it's an hour, half hour, bring some chips, snacks, some, you know, water, some tea. But the most important thing is the connection. And, you know, I think Jody, what did she say, is nine meetings or something, 9 times of getting together. After that, you've created this kind of magic where now you're a community. And if something happens, it's a proactive engagement. And if something happens, when some shit goes down, you guys are ready to respond. So for instance, Jody's group that she'd been meeting with for many years, and they'd done many things. They'd helped out houseless kids in their community. They supported the local schools. I think it's helpful if there's maybe an activist in the group. It doesn't have to be like that because everyone is, you know, is concerned. But they were so proactively engaged that when I came on board and was really concerned about Mexico and what was going on, they were ready to respond. And they sat down and they're like, okay, this is Kelly and she's doing this. And Jody said, what do you all want to do? How do you all want to respond? And they knew that they could gather things. They knew they could gather supplies. They knew they could gather clothes. They could meet and pack up toiletries. They could meet and pack up tampons and pads and, you know, things for the women. And they could, you know, also respond to the needs of the local activists who were there, asking the people what they needed. So they did that, and we went down to Mexico several times. I'm getting ahead of myself in the story, but local peace economy organizing is about talking to people, getting to know what they're good at, and supporting them in connecting their resources to larger needs. They decide what those needs are and how they can organize them. Maybe it's a garden or a shed for houseless youth to be able to come and pick up warm clothes in the winter, or a place for them to charge their phones, or take a shower or grab food. There's a really amazing project that's going on in Santa Cruz here in Northern California, where for the houseless brothers and sisters, they have organized this thing where they can charge their phones, take a shower, wash their clothes. And it's not a huge operation, but it's enough so that, you know, the folks who are going through this moment of crisis can get jobs. They can, you know, get a sandwich, get themselves together, maintain their dignity. You know, I lived on a school bus. I still have this bus. It's at the farm now, but I lived on a school bus for a while here in Oakland. It was a very brash crazy Kelly moment, but I was like, I'm not paying any more rent. I'm tired of all these like, money grubbing landlords and stuff, because there's an energy afoot when everyone thinks they can make more and they're going to raise your rent overnight. And you have kind of like Trump, no dignity to you. Excuse me. So living on that bus, I realized though, the things that we need to participate in the society, like running water and like all these things, that when they aren't in place, it begins to wear you down. It begins to make you feel less than. It begins to make you feel, and if you're not careful, and if you're not, grounded, you lose that bit of esteem that you need to make it through like a society like ours. And then before you know it, you've given up, or you've gone down a road and you lose your way. So one really important piece of growing a local peace economy is show upness. And this has helped me because I'm very like, just boom, boom, boom. But showing up and staying, showing up and not coming back, showing up to a meeting. And I work with a local peace in San Jose. And for, I think about a year, I was just, going to meetings out there. It's not like about an hour or so, but giving them the seed of togetherness and hearing their ideas and that kind of thing. And then, they're doing some amazing things at local peace economy, San Jose. It's the consistency until finally there's a weave of bonds, energy, friendship, and love and camaraderie. And everyone, Jody always say to me, everyone has to be friends and love each other, but they know why they're there, they do their thing, because that happens too. People get together, there's cattiness, but once you get focused on what you're gonna do, then the magic happens. Being of support when things go wrong. Growing a local peace economy is reactivating the part of us that has learned to live alone, or not talk to our neighbors, or see someone in need, or just walk over to them and say hi. I mean, just when we walk over people who are houseless or who are in need, I can't do that anymore. If I see something happening, I just like, because I have the confidence of having done this project for so long, it reinvigorates that part of us that has atrophied in a very materialistic, very separated society that rewards you for being cold. And I didn't realize it, and I'm thankful for the language and for the technology. But when I'd stood on that street corner many years ago and met the little boy who was a bright, beautiful, gorgeous kid and had diabetes, and I was making smoothies for them, and I wanted to show him how to make it, and he had nowhere to get the ingredients. And I'm just like, this kid was growing up in the building that Marcus Garvey had organized in. He grew up in the building where the Black Panthers had organized in. And here he was, diabetic, and the school to prison pipeline, he's already in it. And so that day I said, every child in Oakland is going to have to get a smoothie. Like, that's my bright idea. And we're working on it, and it's moving forward. But that was my deal with the light, with local peace economy. So I had to engage neighbors, I had to engage people, I had to engage all these things. There's a lot of work, but that's a local peace economy project. In the years since, I've realized that for me, local peace economy means working and loving my communities back to wholeness and love through nourishing projects that heal, pouring my energy into things that are going to, like being out in this garden, which even as I'm speaking, is nourishing me with its light, with its aliveness, and perhaps you too. But, as activists, it's really easy to get pulled into that thing where you're just like, all the time. And we burn ourselves out that way. So local peace economy is always already nourishing us because it means that we're connecting with other people. So that's one thing that's happening. And it's also helped me to know when I've had enough, and know when it's time for me to all right, I got to go back in, I got to go underground. And like when this thing with Palestine's happening, knowing that it's okay to take a day and write my songs and cry, and be in the rhythm of what my body needs, because I have a commitment to show back up for community. I really want to talk about building power and sharing power. Local peace economy reminds us how to share power, and that as we are building the power in our community, reminding us to share it, because power it really isn't power if it's not shared. And we're moving out of a time when one person can hold, or the top down, all that kind of stuff. So local peace economy is very equalizing, because you're engaging everyone's resources. If somebody in the group writes press releases, and somebody else like makes the good pies that you sell, and somebody else it kind of has this thing of doing what nature does, which is holistic. It's holistic, and it's inviting us back into that vibration of equity and organic presence, and takes us out of our ego somewhat. Maybe that's a little bit, I'm going too far. That's what I hope that it's doing for people. Karl Marx talked about, and I didn't know anything about this, y'all, I gotta be honest. I am not a Marxist and all these things, but God bless Brother Marx. But Marx talked about the 4 alienations, and I'm saying I didn't know about it before I started this work, and activists talk a lot about Marx, but he talks about the 4 alienations, and it's funny because I found my way to this understanding through working with nature, and working in gardens, and working with kids, and working with people, who are trying to support communities away from war economy. But the 4 alienations, which I'm sure some of you know, is labor, or disengaged from our labor. Like, we're selling our labor, we're selling our time, we're hiring out our time. It starts in the factory and then it moves out. So we move. Joseph Campbell talked about, industrialization being the death of life in the beginning of slavery, and hopefully living through the ends of that at this point. But the alienation from labor, the alienation from nature, the alienation from community, and the greatest alienation, I believe, is the alienation, and the most powerful is the alienation from ourselves. When we are afraid of our thoughts, we're afraid of our bodies, we're afraid of one another, the way our hair grows. Race is a big, many things move through race. When I say that, I'm talking about our natural hair, because we want to fit in, or we want to be beautiful. So we have, extensions or weaves or these kinds of things, which are fun. I've done it. It's not a bad thing, but it's like, having it in context. So local peace economy means that everything I do will be a walk towards my wholeness and my ability to listen to my intuition, which is something that we need to reclaim. So when I was so as a kid, when I went to go interview Paul Mooney, that was my intuition. Like, I didn't have all these phrases, war economy and this and that, but I knew that this was a man who was speaking truth. He was speaking the truth as a brother, about whiteness, about, all these things that are going on, and about being shut down, about writing for Richard Pryor. And this is a famous, amazing, important man. And meanwhile, he's doing stand up on the Chitlin circuit because he's been silenced by Hollywood because he's telling these truths. So it's a walk towards my own wholeness and the ability to listen to my intuition, something we're robbed of in a society built around competition, death, disease, and an inner hollowing that had more than half of our country giving only a slight nod to the fact that we created conditions that allow the brutalities and traumas at our nation's borders that will linger for generations. Blessings to those children who suffered through those moments and those times. And I spent a lot of time with those kids at the border. I spent time with the children who've been tear gassed. I spent time with that family. As a result of my just saying no in Berlin and coming back, I ended up, I'm not sure if you guys remember the kids who were tear gassed at the border, Maria and her 5 children. But that day when I heard about that situation, when I was in Berlin, I said, God, I would just love to hug those kids and let them know that all Americans aren't this way. And I had an opportunity. Their attorneys actually asked me, "Okay, come and you make smoothies. Come and make some smoothies with these kids." And so I had a chance to do that, and it was my sense that God was listening to me. Yeah, I appreciate that. I got on my knees that day and prayed. The thing that's happening is that wow, when you put out a call and it's not answered, African American tradition is about call and response. So when the preacher says, "Can I get an amen? Can I get an amen?" So when I go out and say these kids are dying, this is happening, I wasn't getting an amen. I wasn't getting anything back. And this is an important thing about local peace economy, is that we have connection. It reinvigorates connection. It regenerates connection. It's restorative. So I could really, you all see how I present, you see my energy. I could really actually go nuts in this country because all these things are happening and it's not in alignment with, brown embodied, woman who is for life. And in a country that historically has not been for life, I need to find more people who agree with me. And I need to find more people who are willing to be engaged in life. This is local peace economy is about connecting with one another, to be alive. And it's not going to happen in a corporation. It's not going to happen it's going to happen out here with each one of you. So that's the close of my comments. And I'm really interested in hearing from people and hearing back and any questions, thoughts, or ideas or conversation. I'm gonna put myself on mute so I can drink some water and listen.
Well, if nobody else is going, then I'll go. Kelly, it is so good to see you. And I know we don't talk hardly ever, but I love, seeing what you do. The whole smoothie thing and empowering youth and bringing nutrition to everybody. And I'm a gardener. In fact, I took a break from planting the vegetable garden because I'm like, Kelly, it's Kelly. I got to be here. I got to listen to what she has to say because I love everything that you're doing. And you have such a wonderful soul. And I love that you are brave enough to share it with everyone. And I really like what you're talking about, talking to people. And it's so easy in our everyday lives to shut people out, especially with everything that's been going on lately. And stay away from people because you might get sick and people, I think, talk less. So I think we do need to reach out to people and it is one little step at a time and one word at a time and one wave to your neighbor at a time. So anyway, and I love the gardening because I think the vegetables and everything. We plant a huge garden, and I have my boys go out and the first year they sold it, and last year they donated vegetables to all the neighbors, and we got to know so many people. People that some older couples that they used to garden but they can't anymore, and they were really excited to have the fresh vegetables because they couldn't produce them. They couldn't get out and do the gardening, but my kids can. I mean, they're still young, and it was nice to have that connection with them. Anyway, I'll stop. I'm just rambling now. I'll let somebody else talk.
Thank you, Susan. It's so good to see you. Susan and I went to high school together in Connecticut. What a crazy journey. That's like another part of the book. I see your puppies behind you. It's so good to see you. I want to connect with you more. And thank you so much for being here. It means so much to me. You have no idea. You're still in Chicago? You're still in Chicago, right?
I'm in the northern suburbs of Chicago.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna be doing a visit there and soon, and I want to see you and your beautiful boys. God bless you, man. I love you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Where are you at, Susan?
I'm in Gurnee.
Okay.
And so, I mean, I'm involved with the Stop ETO group, with the ethylene oxide in our area, which is still happening. I'm not real happy about that.
Are you a part of Code Pink? Have you joined Code Pink, or do you know?
I am not. No. No, I mean, as far as my activism goes, it's really about the local issue here with the ethylene oxide and the plants that are still using it and still have high emissions and we're breathing in a cancer-causing gas. And
Wow.
I waffle between, you know, trying to let people know and trying to work towards a solution to, okay, this is not going away, let's flee, let's move somewhere else, which is, even for somebody with a little bit of means, is proving more and more difficult to do with the, you know, housing and everything. So, and I know that's not the solution anyway, because, you know, we move out, somebody else moves in. So,
Susan, I'd be happy to connect you with Kappa's climate group that are working on a variety of things, but I know that at the state level, they're certainly working on CEJA to begin with. And so this sounds like, you know, not a far cry from a state level issue. I don't know how much the municipality has to deal with it, but if you want, you can hit me at david@shypeaceaction.org and I'll just connect you and you can see if that's something that maybe you can find a little more community for your activism through that group.
yeah, okay, we'll connect. I know that there's some of the Stop ETO members that are much more active than I am, that are involved in the state level. And they are involved with the local politicians as well. We had a mayor that was refusing to acknowledge the problem. And we also have other communities that are affected that kind of, they don't want to know what's happening, which is really sad. We have had a change and maybe there's a little bit of hope that something will happen. I know that there was a recent article out about ETO and how the local companies have not been reporting the emissions to the EPA for years now, even though they're supposed to. And so there are people working on it. It's just, you know, it's so slow, so slow.
That sounds like a perfect project, like a perfect local piece. But the thing that I really enjoy about doing this project is that, or witnessing really a lot of the work that folks are doing, like, you know, if you were to start a little local chapter or just in utilize any of the technology of it, is how things move, you know, just the way, you know, people telling each other, like just right now, the connection that was made and it's kind of, you know, moves out like that and like a domino effect. And then things get done. And then, you know, the corporations and the, you know, and these powerful, you know, organizations, they hide as long as they can, or keep, you know, keeping people moving or not, you know, as long as they can. And then something pops at some point. There's this phrase that I share a lot when I do these talks, chop wood, carry water, chop wood, carry water. And that was one of the first things Jody talked to me about. It was like, chop wood, carry water, you know, Buddhist vibe of like, just, you know, you do all the little things that you need to do. It becomes a practice. And then before you know it, boom, something happens that changes things in a way that will change the air quality of the community, because the, you know, corporations have to make some kind of changes or do something different or report differently. And they're so, they're just so shitty. Like, they just don't want to do the things that are going to help people live longer. And so that means that we need to engage. And when we do engage, it is a fact that it will change things when we engage, you know, in a certain way. So, because one person, like you were saying, one person can't do it all. It definitely takes the community. So I'll be totally down to like connect with you, Susan, and, you know, support even as your friend in any way that I can, you know?
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, totally. So important for your children and the other kids to have clean air, you
Yes.
know? Yeah. And water. Absolutely.
Alrighty, I just shared with everyone in the group chat the link back to the main meeting around 11:45. The workshop ends, but Kelly, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us. It was, I mean, it was just like, it was just so beautifully put, I think, and it was really eye-opening, and really there was just so so much information, so much to learn. And I think I totally agree, especially over the last year, just to like kind of add, I've really found myself like grounding myself through like nature and like being outside, and like, especially with the, pandemic, you're kind of at home. I've been like blessed to also have a beautiful garden and like space in like the suburbs to walk around and move around. So I've definitely found myself, as when I get overwhelmed with the things going on in the world and how much there's for us that we need to be doing or feel that we need to be doing, just because of social media and the constant connections and everyone kind of, bringing something to the table, the problem that is happening in the world, going into nature and just like taking a deep breath like we did at the beginning, and just kind of, like starting, kind of starting to slowly organize yourself in nature, and do what you can do. So
Like every origin story, right? Buddha, Christ, right? They all go and sit in a cave, sit in a forest. Moses goes up to fucking Mount Sinai, right? It's in every major religion's origin story, is this solitude with nature to find the inner way, I guess, right? So
Yeah,
thanks, Kelly.
absolutely. You're right about that. You're absolutely right about that. I mean, I'm working on a book. In closing, I'll say I'm working on a book called "The Earth is the Only One Telling the Truth," and I realized that, which is my father came to me in a dream. He's now in the ancestral realm too, like my mom, and he said, "Baby, just tell him the Earth is the only one not lying. The Earth is the only one telling the truth." And so it focused me on on my work even more. And this whole thing that I've gone through in Oakland was an initiation into my work as just someone who's, I don't think I will cop to. I don't say I'm a healer and all that kind of stuff, but I will say that I'm kind of just pointing people back to the earth, back to nature. And I just want to thank Nick and thank everyone, the organizers of this beautiful project today. And I want to come out to Chicago, my hometown. It means so much to me that this is happening in Chicago. Now I have yet another family and group of people to hang out with and folks to introduce. So I'll be out there, inshallah, this summer, and would love to connect with everyone. And thank you so much, Nick, for doing this and for helping me. And all the faces I see, Shay, everyone, thank you so much.